In this video, we will learn about note values. Let's take a look at our first note. This note is called the whole note. In a measure of 4/4 time, it will get 4 beats. You place a whole note on a staff like so, or if it's on a line, like so. Our next note is called a half note. A half note in 4/4 time gets 2 beats. When written on a staff, you would write a half note like this. Now, the difference when writing a half note between a whole note is you have what we call a stem. If the note is below the middle line in the staff, the stem goes on the right side and upwards, like a D. If the note is above the middle line, you put the stem on the left side going downwards, like a P. If the note is on the middle line, you can choose which way you would like the stem to go. The next note that we're going to look at is called a quarter note. In a measure of 4/4 time, a quarter note is going to get 1 beat. On a staff, we draw it just like the half note, except we fill in the note, as you can see here. Again, the stem is either going to be like a D or a P, depending on where it falls. Our next note is called an eighth note. An eighth note gets half a beat. We'll quickly draw it on the staff here. So just like a quarter note, except it's got a stem. Now, if we look here, you can see that we have our eighth notes here. These are also eighth notes. When we write more than one eighth note, we have the option of grouping it together across the top instead of putting what we call here the flag. So you can write eighth notes just like this, or you have the option of connecting it with a stem across. Okay, our final note, and we're going to learn about today, is called the 16th note. The 16th note gets a quarter of a beat in a measure of 4/4 time. The 16th note has 2 flags, and if we draw them in groups, we have the option of barring 2 across and joining it in groups. So let's take a look at writing a 16th note up here. We would put the 2 flags in. So it's just like our P, except we put in 2 flags. Now, if we were to put 2 of them together, we have the option of putting 2 bars across there to symbolize that is the 16th note. Okay, now if we take a look at our note pyramid here, you can see that as you go down, each one is progressively worth half of the one above it. So if a whole note's worth 4 beats, a half note's going to be worth 2. That means that 2 half notes, right, if this is 2 beats and this is 2 beats, will equal 1 quarter note, which will equal 4 beats. Okay, going down further, you can see that 2 quarter notes, which are 1 beat each, are going to equal 1 half note. 2 eighth notes is going to equal 1 quarter note, right? If each eighth note is worth half a beat, half plus a half equals 1. And 2 16th notes will equal 1 eighth note. A quarter plus a quarter equals a half. So let's take a look at one example of a simple addition rhythm problem. So if we were to take 2 eighth notes and a quarter note, and we had to figure out one note that was equal to those, we'd have to add their values together. So in this case, we'd have a half plus a half plus 1. Now that is going to equal 2. Now, if we were to pick one note that is going to equal 2, you could say that a half note is equal to 1/4 note and 2/8 notes. Okay, let's take a look at one more example of that. If we had a group of 4 16th notes, if each 16th one is worth 1/4, so that's 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 is going to equal 1. And 1 beat would be a 1/4 note. Okay. So there's one other thing we have to talk about. When looking at note values, sometimes you will see a dot placed beside the note like so. A dot when to the right of a note means that you take half the value of that note and add it on to its original value. Okay. So a whole note is worth 4 beats. So if a dot means to take half and add that on. Half of a whole note would be 2. So therefore, a dotted whole note is going to equal 6 beats. Okay? So that would be now a dotted whole. You can put a dot beside any note. So if we have a dotted half, it means we will be taking 2 beats plus half of that, which is 1, which will equal 3. So a dotted half note would be worth 3 beats. A 1/4 note would be 1 plus a half, so that's 1.5 beats. An 1/8 note would be a half plus a 1/4, which is going to equal 3/4 of a beat. Okay, and that's as far as we'll really need to go for now. Okay, so let's do an example of an addition problem using dotted rhythms. So if you are given an 1/8 note plus a 16th note, you would be looking at half a beat plus a 1/4 of a beat. So if we need something that's 3/4 of a beat, we'd look here and we see that that is a dotted 1/8 note. Okay, so those are the note values that we will be working with this semester.